Hello world, it is Friday, September 13th. We're at the 40th Climate Change Awareness Rally. I'll hold on for a second because we got it's the 40th Climate Change Awareness Rally in Gettysburg, PA, USA. So far it's just the three of us as usual, my wife and Wilma. Wife's in red and Wilma's there. So we stand with our placards on the square and hopefully engage some people as far as making them aware of what climate change is happening and that we are in an emergency. Next, on the 20th, September 20th, there will be a rally, a worldwide rally, as far as climate change strike. And we're going down to Washington, D.C. We're going to ride the subway down from Shady Grove and take that into D.C. Right now, Greta Thunberg, who is the 16-year-old activist, came from over from Sweden through England over to here via a sailboat, risked her life doing that, is in D.C. as well. She's speaking or hanging out at the White House area and doing a climate change strike there. So hopefully thousands of kids are there, or at least hundreds, taken off from school because there's no sense in going to school if you don't have a future, and that's her point. And literally within 10 years, there's going to be no future, I would think. School kids, high school kids, just in this area and especially USA, just aren't getting it. In Vietnam, when Vietnam was going on, college kids were the center of the action as far as knowledge and getting to it and doing the protests and everything, which changed the whole direction of the country as far as climate change goes, or as far as Vietnam goes, and it changed the whole political outlook. And to this day, we're still receiving the benefits thereof, where you should go into endless wars as we're in now. So I don't know, maybe it lost its oomph after a while. The hippies all died off and became corporatists and decided to engage in the American lifestyle, which is just wasteful use of fossil fuels endlessly and their own personal satisfaction. We need to get back to looking at a worldwide view as far as people go and other countries, and stop being so ethnocentric or country-centric. We listened to several professors from various colleges over the last year, and it's amazing how little they know about climate change. Yeah, they know some things, but they cannot connect the dots, as Paul Beckwith says. You need people that connect the dots and can, get all the information and come up with what is happening. Each one is in their own ivory tower, and they think they know what's happening with climate change, but they really have no clue. And I'm talking people from big-time colleges like Ivy League and pseudo-Ivy League colleges. So they really need to pay attention to the numbers. You don't need to be controversial. They need to do their studying and bone up. They're really behind. I mean, they're probably at like a fourth grade level where fourth grade kids should be. And they're not being honest with the other kids in their classes and telling them the truth as to what's happening and giving out the hardcore numbers. If you do want that, if you go on a website to Roger Hallam, he does give talks, and he did one 10 months ago that spells out the numbers. It's an hour and 42 minutes long, but if you go into the first 10 minutes or so, start at the 10-minute mark, he starts putting out the numbers as to what's happening and the outlook for the world. So it's well worth it. Right now, as far as the numbers go, right now we're at 408 parts per million. We had gotten up to 415 parts per million. Mankind has only existed between 200 parts per million and 280 parts per million. So we're at 415, 408, and then next spring we'll probably be at 420, 418, somewhere in there. So far we have locked in, and this is locked in, 130 feet of sea level rise. That's what's coming down the tube. And we're also locked in a 3 degrees Celsius rise. The IPCC says we can't go above 1.5 degrees Celsius. We're going to blow so far past that, it's not going to be funny. The problem with that is that you can't grow food when you have varying temperatures. So you could have a heat wave, you could have a cold snap or whatever, and then you could have drought or floods or whatever due to the Arctic sea ice melting. And it causes a waviness in the jet stream. So everything basically for the northern hemisphere comes down to the Arctic. That's where most of the food is grown, in the northern hemisphere. So without the Arctic sea ice keeping things even, the jet stream does all sorts of wavy stuff, and it doesn't stay normal patterns. And if you're a farmer, you're up against it, and you know what I'm talking about. Right now, the Gulf Stream is being affected as well due to the melting sea ice and also Greenland ice, which is injecting mass amounts of fresh water into the system, which kills off the conveyor belt underneath the water. And so what that entails then is heating in the Caribbean. The Gulf Stream will slow down and almost stop, and then massive hurricanes will generate. So the example of the Bahamas is one good example of how the jet stream is non-effective, and that the hurricane over the Bahamas just stayed there for 2 days or 3 days at Category 5. So it's quite an amazing thing from a science point of view, quite horrible from a Bahamian point of view. And another thing on a sidebar of that is these people had utter destruction going on in their homes, and they're literally 88 miles away from the U.S. coast, and right now the U.S. is doing absolutely nothing other than the Coast Guard over there to help the people. 88 miles, that's all the distance is between the United States and Bahamas, and it's a sin. It's a Christian sin that we're not helping them. It's just absolutely ridiculous. So you got Antarctica, and they're starting to go through the same patterns that the Arctic did, even though they have massive amounts of ice, and eventually they'll raise the sea levels up at 230 feet. But Antarctica is going through the same patterns that the Arctic did 7 years ago. And this consequence of this will be Australia is going to superheat up. They're going to just burn to a cinder or have droughts or floods, whatever happens. They're in deep trouble. And if I was in Australia, I'd really think about relocating eventually, because they are an island and there's nowhere to go. And once they're cut off for good. Right now, the rainforests continue to burn in South America, the Congo, Angola, and Indonesia. Indonesia's having wildfires now because they cut down so much of their rainforest to create palm trees and grow palm trees plantations for palm oil, that they're having these wildfires, and it's a result of losing the rainforest. They totally changed the ecology of the rainforest there, and now they're going through a desertification process, the savanna at the very least. So you get these hurricanes again that are going to be cut off. Island nations are suffering extreme danger right now. If you look at the United States as a castle, basically the islands are being overrun by hurricanes. Sky was beeping, that's pretty cool. The hurricanes have overrun the outer defenses, which are the island nations, and it's a direct warning to the United States that our cities are very vulnerable to extreme hurricanes, and eventually it will happen. And these hurricanes that they're calling Category 5, in reality, if they did the graduated wind scale, they'd be Category 6 or 7. They just won't come up with a Category 6 or 7 category because then it freaks people out too much. Action is needed by an informed public. The media is not informing anyone. The politicians are paying attention to the IPCC results, which are just absolutely way behind. They're 5 years behind on any of their assessments. They're never correct on their models, and they really don't have a clue as to what's going on as to the reality. And they're always surprised that things are going faster than expected. If they paid attention to the scientists that are available and the papers that are available, they would understand that things are the way they're supposed to be, and you got to quit involving politicians in your decisions. So the scientists at the UN come up with these ideas of what's going to happen, and then it goes in front of the group, the IPCC group, and then they water it down because the politicians say you can't say such harsh things. Well, then reality comes and things go faster than expected. So it's really a disservice, and it's not telling the truth, and it's lying to the public. The press is being de facto cooperatives with the climate change deniers, and that not reporting the truth or not reporting anything. They gloss over it. They never cover climate change as to what's happening. They don't associate these extreme weather events with climate change. So, without an informed press, or a press telling you the truth, without the politicians telling you the truth and what's going on, then the country's pretty well doomed unless you do your own research. And people don't have time to do that because they want you to keep busy by keeping your 3 jobs and just scrambling to survive. So if you notice, the politicians 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders was the only one saying climate change is real, it's real. And then everyone else is like, oh, Bernie, you're full of it. Oh, now all the politicians running for president are saying we're in an existential crisis, which they don't really know what that means. We're in a life-threatening event right now. And I guarantee you, in 4 years, we're going to be in a climate change catastrophe, and the politicians will be acting like they knew all along what was happening, and they told you, but they didn't. And you have to remember your history as to what's going on. You got to quit electing politicians that are hell-bent on killing you because of their policies. Unless you don't care about your kids or wives or husbands or whoever else, then it's fine. So it may be too late, and maybe a climate-denying president is what we need, again, for another 4 years till people get it, and by then it'll be way too late to affect it. But you get what you deserve. You stay uninformed, you stay unconnected, and not be an activist, as in the square here where no one comes out. You get what you deserve, and maybe you deserve, and we deserve Trump. Maybe the world does, because this is where we're headed, and he's gonna undo everything and take the brakes off, and CO2 will run rampant, and then we're gonna be hard-pressed to even survive beyond 5 years. So hang in there, do whatever you want, but I really suggest people start getting active, especially the college kids. Your lives are in danger, and I give you less than 10 years before your life is upside down. And what's the point of going to college if you're not going to be using your education for knowledge as far as being active and paying attention to what's happening on around you? So you need to get to it and get off your duffs and quit playing on your phones and get out here and be active. So next week, September 20th, the Worldwide Climate Change rallies. We're going down to DC, as I said. Wilma might be here in Gettysburg doing her own separate solo rally here. So if you feel like coming out and support her, it's well worth it. She's a good person. So I'll see you later. Signing out.